To this end, the army had drawn up 3 primary offensive missions: an advance in the direction of Sialkot by 26th Division, a major thrust by 1 Corps to capture the Shakargarh Bulge between North Punjab and South Jammu and Kashmir, and a strike across the desert to cut off the rail link between Pakistan's Punjab and Sindh provinces. It was on the Shakargarh front that some of the most desperate fighting took place. Here the Pakistanis fought to the man for every inch of territory. The offensive was launched along 3 axes. 2 striking southwards from the general direction of the Kathua-Samba stretch of the main Pathankot-Jammu road. A 3rd thrust was to be launched from the Gurdaspur area. The goal, the capture of Shakargarh. The operations began on the night of the 5th and 6th of December and went on till the ceasefire, by which time the biggest tank battles of the war had taken place. By the 8th of December, the 2 northern thrusts had reached the outskirts of Shakargarh. By the 15th of December 1971, 54th Division, attacking from the north, had control of all points overlooking the Shakargarh-Zafarwal road. The biggest test was the crossing of the Basanta River, which had been mined extensively by the Pakistanis. Despite a series of counterattacks, the Indian army held out, and on the 15th of December, a bridgehead was established. The Pakistanis tried everything to destroy that bridgehead, and the fighting here was easily the most desperate in the war, with the Pakistanis losing as many as 46 tanks in less than a day's fighting. It was also in this theatre of operations that one young man in the Indian Army showed courage almost beyond words. Second Lieutenant Arun Khetarpal of the Poona Horse was ordered to deploy his tanks in defense of Indian infantrymen near the Basantar Bridge. In doing so, Khetarpal first took on one Pakistani stronghold after another, overrunning enemy defenses and destroying Pakistani recoilless guns. During the attack, the commander of Khetarpal's 2nd tank was destroyed, but the young lieutenant decided to carry on, this time facing off against an entire squadron of Pakistani tanks with only 3 of his own. Khetarpal's tank was hit and he was ordered to abandon his tank. Instead, he refused, eventually being killed, but not before personally knocking out 4 Pakistani tanks. Khetarpal won the Paramveer Chakra. Brigadier A.S. Bal, a Mahavir Chakra winner himself, was Khetarpal's commanding officer. A major in 1971, it was his job to motivate the men in his tank units, men who were badly outnumbered.
I think within a few hours of the ceasefire, taking normal precautions, officers and few men from this side, our side and their side, we just walked across and shook hands. And in my particular case, the opposing squadron commander, I told him that he's fought very well. He's fought very well. And he said, "You're pulling my leg. You don't have to tell me who's fought well. We know that you have fought better." And he had lost all 4 of his officer troop leaders, and he could not trace the bodies. And from his own tank, he was the only survivor. Whole day he hid behind the tank and pulled back at night. And then he asked me, pointing towards Arun Khetarpal's tank, who was in that tank. The man, I don't think anybody could have done a better performance during war. He was brave, very brave man. So that was his, overall, they knew that we have won the battle. And that particular gentleman was humble enough to accept it.
On the night of the 5th of December, Brigadier N.S. Sandhu, then a colonel of the 10th Dogra Regiment, was ordered to capture the Dera Baba Nanak Bridge across the Ravi River in the Sialkot sector. Tanks of the 71st Armoured Regiment were expected to support the Dogras, but got stuck in the stream. Sandhu and his men would now have to fight alone. Ordering his men to arm themselves with grenades, the colonel proceeded to cross the stream to outflank Pakistani positions. The element of surprise was with the Indian troops, who caught the Pakistanis unprepared for the surprise attack. In the heavy fighting that followed, 60 Pakistani soldiers were killed and the bridge was captured. Sandhu was awarded the Mahavir Chakra.
The complex of the river and the bridge which we were supposed to capture is consisting of a large number of river bunds on which they had built concrete pillboxes. At one stage, Captain Devinder Alawat, who was commanding C Company, his advance was held up by one of the MMG pillboxes from where the 2 MMG of the enemy were firing. 5 of his Jawans were killed. A JSO went up over there. He also could not progress and could not destroy this bunker. And I was shouting at top of my voice with the company commander that why is his advance not progressing as per the plans. Eventually, he went next to the bunker himself, threw a grenade inside, got hold of the MMG of the enemy, and enemy was killed with those grenades that he thrown. But in the bargain, he received 5 bullets into his chest, and next day, when we recovered his body, we saw his hands also burned because he was clutching onto the barrel of the enemy machine gun. He was recommended for the Paramveer Chakra, but he got Mahavir Chakra posthumous.
On the 6th of December, the Attock oil refinery was set ablaze.
Critics of the Indian Army's operations in the western sector have argued that despite the overall success, the operations had ended in a stalemate. But that was perhaps necessarily the case.
Aircraft of the IAF continued attacks on the Karachi docks, setting fire to oil storage dumps between the 7th and the 8th of December.
Following the decisive victory in East Pakistan and under intense international pressure, India had to back its stated position of having no territorial ambitions. When the government of India announced a unilateral ceasefire on the Western Front on the 17th of December 1971, the Pakistani High Command accepted. Its strategic objectives having been lost, and despite the brilliant fighting of some of its forces, a decisive tilt in favor of the Indian Army was seen to be around the corner. Perhaps just a week away.
We have repeatedly declared that India has no territorial ambition. Now, as the Pakistani armed forces have surrendered in Bangladesh and Bangladesh is free, it is pointless in our view to continue the present conflict.
The bloody war in the western sector was over. With the liberation of Bangladesh in the east and honor in battles in the west, the Indian Army had clearly come out of its shell. The loss of 1962 and the stalemate of 1965 were now in the past. In 1971, in the western sector, Indian soldiers had stood their ground, fighting to the last tank, the last bullet, and in some instances, the last man.